I am recording. Fellas, and to everybody listening, in this planet, seemingly, we have dire wolves again. Did you hear about that shit?
I did hear about that. Yeah, people are like, "Oh, they brought dire wolves back from extinction," and it's like, no, they examined part of the genome for a dire wolf, and then altered some of the genes for a gray wolf, and then you know, like based on the genome, they're still gray wolves.
Really?
It's like it's so funny. Like this is Joe Rogan bro science. That's what's happening. Like it's like I saw something on YouTube the other day. It was like a recommended video. It was like Joe Rogan's show, and it's like it's always a thumbnail of like the two faces of the guys, like mid
Mhm,
sentence, and they
mhm,
look like inquisitive, and the title of the video was like ancient city discovered beneath the pyramids, and it's
mhm.
like no, there wasn't. I already know there wasn't. Like there's some caveat to this where it's like oh there's like some like speculation about it that some Egyptologist recently said something, but there's
Yeah,
no fucking ancient. Get the fuck out of here, city under the pyramids.
yeah.
They did not find that.
It's funny
Yeah,
to me
it's the
though.
bro science,
Yeah,
dude.
it's funny to me because I saw it. I think Time Magazine had it. It's been like a very like it's been a very like in your face thing, right? And there's even a video of it, and you can like it's like, oh, hear them howl for the first time in like 14,000 years or something like that.
Yeah,
I didn't bother to do the education, but I knew that you would know something about it because I something I've heard for a while is that they're trying to bring back like woolly mammoths or something.
yeah, they've been trying to do that since like 2001.
Yeah,
Before that, probably actually.
yeah.
Yeah, I listened to like a Sam Harris podcast recently where he interviewed the guy who's trying to do that. But there comes a certain point where they talk about it for so long that it's like I really don't care until you actually show me something because or
Show me
just give me the updates,
Yeah.
but like the headline is old. They've been trying to do this since dude, when I was in kindergarten, I was watching a documentary on Discovery Channel. It was called Raising the Mammoth,
Mhm.
and it was about that. Plus, it was like, well, that was like the B story. The A story was them actually digging one up in Siberia.
Yeah,
It's like, show me, you know, give me the updates, but
yeah.
can we stop with the headlines of like scientists are trying to bring back the woolly mammoth? It's like, I know, I get it.
And I keep thinking that they should have renamed. You know that show? I don't know if it's a show anymore. Or maybe you know that movie, The Whale. They should have named it Wrestling the Mammoth.
Well, he does. Yeah, he has to raise himself. You never
No,
saw that,
I
did
never
you?
saw that. No, I was thinking about that show, like My 500 Pound Life or something. I never saw that. Like I've been meaning to. I've been meaning to watch The Whale.
My 500 pound life is like the whale for real.
Yeah,
That shit is unreal,
that shit's
man. I was watching
unwatchable, and
one.
that's kind of like what I've had trepidation with, like watching the movie The Whale, because I'm just like I don't want to watch this. Like like I've always felt this is how I felt about Aronofsky. This is how I felt about Aronofsky, like since since forever. Like since the first Aronofsky movie that I watched, which was I think it was The Wrestler, the first one that I watched. It was either The Wrestler or Requiem for a Dream. And my thought was, which I wouldn't recommend anybody watch either of those two movies. Maybe more so The Wrestler.
The Wrestler's good.
The Wrestler is
I haven't
good.
seen Requiem for a
I
Dream.
don't mean it in this. I don't mean that because they're bad. They're both incredibly like good movies. But in particular, Requiem for a Dream. It's a movie that I watched once, and then I said to myself, "I'm never watching this movie again." And for
So next week on Film
Yeah, right.
Tangents.
And for anybody who's watched that movie, like they'll tell you, like people will be, that's usually like the number one pick for people. At least like back then. I know that they've made some fucked up movies since then, like the Human Centipede and stuff like that. But for a lot of people back then, it was just like, do you know the Requiem for a Dream is like the movie that they refused to watch, like twice, because you watch it once and then you go like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't want to watch that again. But that's the issue that I've had with Aronofsky. That like he makes like really miserable movies where like the whole idea of it is just like this mystery and they're very fatalist. They usually have like very sad endings. I don't know if any of that's true about The Whale, but that has been like my preconceived notion with that movie, and that's like the one reason I haven't wanted to. Literally, Aronofsky has put me off his own movies, and I don't want to watch The Whale.
Yeah, The Whale, I would say, is like it's comparable with The Wrestler in terms of misery. Maybe a bit. It's probably a touch beyond The Wrestler because at least The Wrestler, the Mickey Rourke's character is like in shape and can like move, where like The Whale can't really. He can't even get up. There's like a scene where he's watching porn and like the pizza man or like a missionary walks in and like he like can't get up to shut the porn off, so he's just sitting there like with his.
Ooh, that's terrible. That's terrible. But it's think about the documentary of that guy. What was it, like Boogie or whatever?
Oh yeah.
And that was another thing. I refused to watch that. I think I watched like 5 minutes, and I was like, I already know what this is, and I just took it off. I was like, I know what that was. I can't do that to myself.
You know what it is? That stuff, like whether it's the stuff with Boogie or the movie The Whale or My 500-Pound Life, like I watch that stuff. I have the opposite reaction where I'm actually filled with gratitude, where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like no matter what problems I'm facing, like these are manageable compared to like what's happening in these products that I'm. Yeah, it's rough, man.
I guess it is interesting because a lot of the time those kind of reality TV shows or Aronofsky movies, I guess, make you feel grateful for your existence, unless you're one of those people and you're seeing your existence reflected on the screen. In which case you're like, oh my god, With all that preamble being said, there's so far 6 minutes into this episode. Everybody, welcome back. This is the show known as Film Tangents. I am here with myself and with me. Make sure to like the show and to subscribe to the channel. And when I say I'm here with me, myself, and I mean that every voice that you hear in the show is just me. I'm just doing like a voice modulation. Just me.
I'm also Edward, and I'm somehow double speaking right now.
I was AI'd in here. I'm not even a real dialogue.
Yeah, Jackson.
He just used AI for me.
Oh my god! Have you guys gotten that fucking ad on YouTube where it's that piece of shit with his glasses that's sitting there, and it's like this just nerd motherfucker, and he's sitting there in front of the camera, and then he says, it's like an AI voice over his. And he's like, I'm probably the only person that will show every trade I've ever made. You can join my program, and I know it sounds too good to be true, but click here and see for yourself. And it's a real guy talking to the camera, but it's an AI voice.
I have no idea. I haven't seen that.
If anyone's gotten that ad recently, leave it in the comments. I hate that motherfucker. Every time I see him, I want to smash my fucking phone.
I guess this is the difference in our algorithms right now, because the only ads I get are from Mark Wahlberg asking me to pray with them.
They gave up on me on that.
Join Halo, please.
I deleted Halo after my penis didn't grow to the size of Boogie Nights, Mark Wahlberg.
The expected amount. The expected size. It actually decreased. It got smaller. That's what happens when you get on Halo. It's negative.
My prayers were getting siphoned off to the devil instead.
Jake, you had something you wanted to go into.
Yeah. Young Scooter. R.I.P. to we'll wait for Edward to stop laughing so it's not disrespectful. We'll let it out, buddy.
Go ahead.
Everybody, welcome back to Film Tangents. Young Scooter. We've unfortunately lost another rapper. Rest in peace to Young Scooter. Passed away last week at some point. From what I understand, I read the articles. Apparently, the cops were called for I don't know if it was a noise complaint or something, but essentially young Scooter fled the scene, and during his flight, I guess, during as he was running away, he hopped a fence and actually um, cut a gash into his carotid artery as he was hopping a fence.
Ooh.
So really kind of a weird, just freak accident.
Wow.
Yeah, kind of weird. Because my first reaction to it was like, oh, shit, like another, some kind of what was this, like some kind of shooting, like police shooting or something. But no, he hopped the fence and got a gash cut down his leg, cut into an artery, and
Ooh,
yeah, he
that
bled
sounds
out, man.
terrible, man.
Yeah. Edward, didn't that happen to you? Didn't you climb a fence and cut a gash down your arm or something, like real deep?
No. It was kind of it's a little bit different. Where it was, I did hop a fence, and
Yeah.
it just kind of impaled my arm. Like
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I can show you like this car. This car is there. You've seen it anyway.
Yeah,
But it just
yeah.
kind of went inside my arm. So then I had to go
Oh.
up. Like, dude, I was going. I had gone off the other side, and then as I was going down, it just stabbed me into my arm. So I had to then go upward and just stake my arm out of it, and then like come out on the other side. But thankfully, it didn't like cut an artery or anything like that. That was but yeah, just hearing that happened to him. That's a terrible way to go. Poor guy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
like I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've jumped fences. Like you never really
Yeah.
think about
Yeah.
that actually being something that could happen.
Yeah. Right. Jesus.
Yeah, you don't think about that. It's gonna make me think twice if I ever hop a fence. But yeah. So young Scooter, man, I'm a hip hop head. Anyone who's listening to this podcast knows I'm a huge hip hop head. I like young Scooter. He was a solid, like, for me, he was a solid feature rapper for the most part. Featured on songs by Future, Gucci Mane, Young Thug. You saw him around. Like, I first heard about him in 2014 or so. Young Scooter, Gucci Mane's new artist. He was also signed to Future. He's kind of involved with both of those guys.
Yeah.
Kind of a prodigy of both, or prodigy, excuse me, of both Gucci Mane and Future. But he had a couple of his own songs that I liked. He's got a song called "On It" featuring Chief Keef that I really like. And then he's probably most famous. I would say his most famous solo artist song would be "Work" featuring Gucci Mane, produced by Zaytoven. Appearing on Los Santos Radio on Grand Theft Auto 5. That's what
Yeah,
most
hell
people
yeah.
know. Yeah, so that's kind of what a lot of people know him for, but he was just kind of a guy you saw featured on stuff. You'd be flipping through a Young Thug album or a Gucci Mane album, featuring Young Scooter, But he was solid. So yeah. It's a shame, man. We keep losing. We lose too many rappers.
Yeah.
We lose too many rappers. But anything you guys got to say about Young Scooter before we move on?
No, like he's one of those rappers that I knew of. I knew about, and for certain, like certainly I've listened to him, on the songs that he's been featured on, whether it was like, whoever, Young Thug or you name it, like people that he featured into their albums. Or, on Grand Theft Auto 5, like I've heard his music. I was never like a big fan of his, or I didn't follow his career or listen to his solo work or anything like that. But ultimately, rest in peace to him. And terrible way to go. And the only thing that I can really do is at least just be grateful to him for the stuff that he did make, that I did enjoy. And it's just sad that I'm not gonna get the opportunity to, I guess, explore his music as an artist, or like see that guy evolve into maybe something that maybe could have caught a little bit of my interest a little bit more. Just terrible whenever stuff like that happens. terrible whenever we have to, especially terrible for me whenever we have to do an RIP and it's like a young artist, or like a young filmmaker, you name it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my piece on it. Do you anything you want to add, Jack?
I don't have too much to add. It's similar kind of to you. It's more of like a, seeing him featured on things like Jake was talking about. And I don't even have a whole lot that comes to mind as far as his music. It was more always to me like, with some of those rappers mentioned that it was just like, oh, Young Thug album or like Future album comes out, that like his name would pop up on a couple of the songs, but never something I really put a, zoomed in on to see. Definitely we'll take a look. Unfortunately, that's part of the deal when rappers die is, they get that magnifying glass and people take a closer look, for better or worse. So, I mean, I guess in the end, be, a surgeon of people that take a look at his, work and, I guess hopefully people can find a little bit of solace and exploring that and kind of seeing what his life's work was. Definitely sad to see, especially, like you said, in many arenas, young deaths, but specifically rap continues to be one where most of the deaths are young. So it's sad to see another artist go, and kind of hope he rests in peace and his family, is doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking here regarding the pyramid thing we were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise, Newsweek. Dr. Zahi Hawass, a prominent Egyptologist and former government official, has dismissed a study from a group of researchers from the Khafre Project, which claimed there was an underground city beneath the pyramids of Giza, as fake news.
Yeah.
Oh. So something that appeared on
Rogan
as a clip on Joe Rogan was fake. Wow.
It seems like most of what appears on there. It's funny, man. Like people have to do their own
stuff
research.
Catches like wildfire, man.
Yeah.
Wildfire. I mean, I'm looking at it right here, and it's like, Joe Rogan, Charlie Kirk, another a complete jackass. But it's like all these channels, all these YouTube channels, what lurks beneath, it's like, okay, what am I going to learn from a YouTube channel called What Lurks Beneath?
It's funny, man.
Come on.
I've been thinking about this for like a little while, especially like in as in regards to like people like Rogan and stuff like that, like big channels. I've just been thinking about like what is I've been thinking like what is the responsibility that these people like have as people with like a platform when they choose to then platform just people who are there just spreading misinformation. It's so silly, but the thought that I've had is that for a lot of these folks, I feel like it becomes like it's easier for them to ignore any of that and just be like, well, this is just what it is. I don't have any responsibility towards my audience or the planet. I'm just, like that's kind of like a big issue that I've had with Rogan for a while. It just is this like insistence on being like, oh, I'm just a guy here having conversations with folks, and it's just like, well, but you're still like, you're the number one podcast in the world, like how long can you like hide behind that as like an excuse for just like blatant like being blatantly responsible for your own choices and platforming people and letting them come into your show and being a gigantic idiot, and then just like sitting there with your mouth open, and just like swallowing whatever they're feeding you and then just going with it. It's so silly. I sent you a YouTube video. I don't know if you've seen it, Jake. I sent it to you like in our chat, which was called like Joe Rogan, the comedy czar. Did you see that?
Yeah, I haven't watched it, but I think I saw like it was how he kind of ruined comedy or whatever, like because he brought all those like hacks in.
Yeah, fascinating video. It's by this YouTube channel called Graveyard Elephant or Elephant Graveyard or something like that. And he like I checked through his channel. He has like a lot of videos just kind of lampooning, like popular comedians,
Uh-huh.
and that Comedy Czar video has been like, I think when I sent it to you, it maybe had like 1,000, like 100,000 views. Like it was like within the people that were subscribed to him, but I found it not being subscribed to that channel. I just kind of saw it. And
Mhm.
I watched it and I was like, oh my god, this is both hilarious and also just like lampoons and highlights the issue that we've been having with comedy. And then since then, it's kind of going a little bit viral. Like it's making big numbers. It's like this
Yeah.
50-minute long video, and it's like this very creative, like very well written, almost just like character, dissection, elimination of Rogan. And the whole idea with it really was that it's like, the whole idea with it is like you said, like the main goal of the video was just kind of to highlight that comedy right now has become this thing that has been that is just adjacent. It's like almost like an organ of Joe Rogan, where it's like all the big
Yeah.
comedians are the guys that stop by his show, all the guys that he platforms, whether it be Bert Kreischer or whether it be Andrew Schultz or you name it, like whoever's a comedian and they go and sit there, right? And that at
Yeah.
some point in time,
Tony Hinchcliffe.
exactly, Tony Hinchcliffe, like all those guys, and that at some point in time, he was bringing actual comedians. But then the issue, and by what I mean by actual comedians, I mean people who are not his friends per se, just people who are
Right.
also comedians like him. By that I mean like way back when he used to bring Bill Burr, which he hasn't done since like 2020.
Mhm.
Or when he brought Louis, like in 2022. Like he was bringing people that were actual just comedians. And then at some point, none of those people have come back. Burr has never come back. That video of Burr making fun of him is like to this day like a huge video that people still kind of circulate of Bill Burr making fun of him and saying that he looked like a jackass. Um,
Did he
so
do that? He made fun of Joe Rogan?
he made fun of him in his show, and it's a video that I've sent to you. Like you've seen it, like you've seen the video. It's like that video where he goes like, oh, he says something along the lines of like oh, you're such a big man, sitting here in front of me, with your 5 o'clock shadow that you think you can just insult people. He like shits on him and just kind of
It
calls
was it
him
to his
out.
face?
But it's literally to his face.
Oh
But you
shit.
would assume, I mean, that's kind of the kind of thing that Bill does.
Yeah.
And I feel like even though Bill has a new show out, I feel like he has purposely something's up where he's not gone on Rogan. And I think even within the last like 5 years, I think he had like a thing with Bert that just also crashed and burned. Like he had a show with Bert, right? Like a podcast with him,
With Bert or Burr?
Bert Kreischer.
Oh, okay.
Like he had
I
one
don't
with
know.
him.
Well, things are like getting really divisive right now. Even more so politically, because I know that, and I don't even want to talk about this shit that much, but I mean, I know that like Bill Burr, he's falling more on kind of the liberal side now, so he's
Yeah.
beefing with Ben Shapiro and fucking I don't know, you name it on that side, and so
Right.
it's like by proxy he's beefing with Joe Rogan
Right.
now.
Right.
It's like so black and white now, man. There's
Yeah.
no fucking crossover anymore. It's
Yeah.
like you're either, you know, yeah, it's like you're either one side or the other. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's
Yeah.
lame, man.
But that's
Fucking lame.
that's been that kind of was what that whole video was about. It's kind of the rise of a very specific type of comedian.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating because I've been thinking about comedy. Because as you know, Jake, like I really loved comedy when we were in college, and I've kind of falling out of comedy a little bit. Like I don't watch comedy specials that much. And a lot of this stuff doesn't excite me because I already feel like walking into a lot of comedy specials, like I already feel like I know what I'm gonna get, like I know what I'm gonna get. But it's interesting to me now, right? Because it feels like oftentimes comedy often is just kind of this counterculture thing, where it's like whatever is popular or, like whatever is a popular thing, comedians are going to try to shit on it. And forever they had this whole like forever with comedy there was this whole cancel culture thing. But it's just like I feel like now we're like on the opposite end of that. So I'm very interested in what what's gonna be the way moving forward, you know? Because I feel like a lot of
Yeah.
these guys have been getting off on just the idea that somebody's trying to suppress their words, and it's like, well, but now that that's not the
Yeah.
case, like now that that's not the case, like what are you gonna like? Are you gonna be funny? You know, like that's the issue that I've had with comedy, that where it feels like nobody's trying to be funny. People are just trying to be like flagrant, or they're just trying to be like controversial, you know. But it's just like
Right.
now there's none of that, you know. Like now we're in a specific time in spectrum, you're right, where like any of these guys can say whatever the fuck they want to say, and that's kind of what everybody's doing with their shows. So in my head, I'm like, does it mean that comedy's back? Does it mean that we're actually gonna be funny again? Are there gonna be jokes in specials? Because like literally, dude, every special that I've seen, even when people hype stuff up, like, you know, I wasn't a big fan of the Shane Gillis thing, even though I did think it was good. I just kind of was like, oh, whatever, you know.
Mm.
So I'm interested, you know. In any case, we'll see what happens. That was a weird head. I was not.
Shane Gillis is kind of no. I mean, I agree. I mean,
Yeah.
Shane Gillis is getting kind of weird. Like the Tires show just pissed me off. That show pissed me off, dude. I couldn't stomach more than like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
It's just hit that goofy looking. It's just that goofy guy, the main character, just sitting there the whole time,
Yeah.
trying not to laugh, and then
Yeah.
Shane Gillis being like, "Dave, come
Yeah,
on,
exactly.
Dude, come on.
That's the whole thing.
Dave, bro, what? Go. What you did, bro? What you did?" It's like, what the fuck is?
That's
What
the whole
is the
show.
plot of this
Yeah,
show?
there's no plot. That's the whole show.
It's so stupid. Before we move too far away from this stuff, it's hard, man, because I kind of hate talking about what's in the news or what's in the
Yeah.
social media world and stuff. But I got to touch on this before it becomes not so relevant anymore.
Go ahead.
Andrew Tate. You guys might remember Andrew Tate.
Mhm.
Top G. He's a human trafficker. You might remember that.
Yeah. We've covered him
Allegedly,
before,
I
yeah.
have to
Allegedly.
say.
Allegedly.
Right.
Yeah.
That was sarcastic when I said Top G. I think Andrew Tate's a scumbag. I think the evidence is pretty clear that he's a complete fucking scumbag, him and his brother.
Yes.
And I can't wait to see them go to prison. Andrew Tate couldn't keep his nose clean in the U.S. I think he's been in the U.S. He was let back into the U.S. for a month, 2 months,
Mhm.
and he couldn't even keep his nose clean for that long. Andrew Tate, according to the New York Post, Andrew Tate's girlfriend, Bree Stern, says accused sex trafficker nearly choked her unconscious during violent sexual encounter.
Wow.
So this is a recent
2 months.
thing. This is like a
Yeah.
So and did this happen in the U.S.?
Yep.
So now he has
This was in,
he has a U.S. case.
Yep. One of Andrew Tate's girlfriends has accused the self-proclaimed misogynist of choking her so hard during rough sex inside the Beverly Hills Hotel that she later alerted authorities, according to a report. By the way, this is not new for him. He's been accused of this before, choking girls unconscious during physical intimacy with them, until basically feeling like their eyes were going to pop out. I mean, the screenshots of the text messages. Let me read you this. After Tate, 38, fell asleep, Stern went to the bathroom and took photos of her injuries, according to TMZ, which obtained photos showing the bruising on the side of her face. Here's a screenshot of their text exchanges. Andrew Tate says, "You back talk too much," or "So I beat you. I will hit you today, but I love you." Bree says, "Why the name calling?" Tate says, "Do you understand?" Bree, "I'm scared." Tate, "Don't care. Do you understand?" Bree, "Yes. Why the hitting, frowny face?" Tate, "Do you belong to me or not?" Bree, "I do." Have we had enough? Like, Valuetainment, Candace Owens, Sean Atwood, Piers Morgan, all these people having this guy on, kissing his ass. Have we had enough?
Yeah.
We've been talking about this guy for 2 years now. Endless amounts of evidence of this guy beating women, trafficking women, threatening them, keeping them in the house, not letting them leave, scamming young men out of tens of thousands of dollars for a webcam business. I mean, do you see the pattern here, though? I mean, it's like the most obvious pattern ever. I don't even know what to say anymore. Have you ever seen something so stupid?
Yeah.
And he keeps claiming, I mean, it's just everything that happens. He just says, "Oh, it's a Matrix attack. It's a Matrix attack. It's a conspiracy." It's like, dude, no one cares about you that much to make all of this shit up across multiple countries, multiple years, multiple women accusing you of the same shit.
Right.
You self-snitching on camera saying that you trafficked women on, I mean, you didn't use those words, but he's saying that he went out, made women fall in love with him, and then had them working his cam business, and then started cheating them out of their taxes. He gave men instructions on how to do that. That's called the lover boy method, and it's called, tax fraud. Those are both textbook human trafficking. It's fucking disgusting. And the fact that people like Candace Owens and Sean Atwood are still having him on their shows is disgusting.
They're grifters.
It's despicable.
That's the thing, man. Like that's kind of like the sad and deplorable element of it, right? That they support grifters, and that's what I guess what I was trying to say with Rogan. Even though let's start with Rogan, like it seems like to folks they relish they relish on misusing the power that the platform gives them. Like they just relish on doing that. Like regardless
for views and clicks.
Exactly. For views and clicks. It's like that movie Nightcrawler. It's just like people. It's just people selling their souls, man. It's like they realize, like, oh, I'm gonna get more money, and I'm gonna get more famous and more clicks if I platform this guy and give this guy a voice and let him say whatever the hell he wants to say. Ignoring, like, again, I feel like it's just mental gymnastics. Like I think it's the same thing with Rogan. It's just this mental gymnastics of having some kind of semblance of an understanding in the back of your mind. Of the impact, the negative impact that it has. To platform these people and to allow them to say out loud the things that they're trying to say, brainwash people in mass. And then just profit and ignore however you might be complicit of that. That's to me, it's like what's so tragic about the state of things with media, because it's like, how do we circumvent that, right? Like, how do we circumvent the fact that so many people, including Tate, all the folks that you mentioned and the people that we've mentioned so far, have so much power, and that they just literally just kind of cowered in the face of the power that they have, and just choose to ignore that they may have some kind of responsibility to the public. It's pretty sickening.
Well, there's no real like incentive these days, like to be like, to do proper journalism, to
right.
Vet these type of people on your podcast and make sure that you're responsible in kind of the message they're trying to have. There's no incentive to not have a controversial artist on, because you can just pump views and get people engaged and just make more money off of it.
No incentive to
clearly there's a mismatch of why it's become socially acceptable to do that.
Yeah,
well, it's also it's peer pressure. Like it doesn't behoove us to talk shit on Joe Rogan. I mean, if we became a bigger podcast, it would then be like, oh, Film Tangent should collab with Joe Rogan or something, and it's like, obviously that's wishful thinking, kind of a pipe dream here, but I get it. I'm self-aware. But if that did happen, it would be like, oh shit, but we've talked shit about Joe Rogan. You know, it wouldn't be that beneficial to our careers. But
Right.
man, at a certain point, you gotta have some fucking principles,
That's
dude.
that's exactly
It's
what I was
like,
about to say.
would I like to go on Joe Rogan's show? Yes. You know, if I were a famous person, yeah, of course. Do I think Joe Rogan's a bit of a goofball? I do. Do I think he's a horrible person? No, I don't. But do I think he's the worst? You know, no. I will say the fact that he hasn't had Andrew Tate on his show yet is a godsend. I don't know how calculated that is. But the day that I see like JRE number 3040 whatever, Andrew Tate being the guest, I'm like, oh fuck, it's over, man.
I don't know, man. Like I feel like it's been
fuck.
I feel like it's been over. Like you know what I'm saying? Because that's what I'm trying to say though. Because it's like how much can you like? Well, you know, like to me, it's been enough with how these people misuse our platforms. Like to me, it's been enough. You know, like I don't have to see fucking Tate be on there. It's pretty ridiculous. I'm gonna segue into something else. So we're gonna leave this topic behind. I wanted to ask you guys something. I saw the ending of the White Lotus. So I saw the ending of the.
Oh, I have not seen it yet.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to go into spoilers.
Okay.
It's not the point of this. But I saw the ending of the show. Season 3 was 8 episodes. You know, season 2 I think is 7, and season 1, the one that you watched, Jack, it's 6. So every season has exponentially grown. I want to ask you guys this, and I'm going to let you guys go off. Okay, what is the point of television? What's the point? What's the point? Like Jake or Jack, whoever, which one of you guys want to answer this? Like, what's the point of television, and what specifically about television do you guys enjoy? Like, what's the advocacy here for it?
I mean, I would go ahead and say, like, I mean, television is, in general, for me, and you know, I coming into a podcast like this, like that's about movies, like that's not really my like most consumed media. I'm more of a television guy because I've always enjoyed the idea of like, yeah, there's a lot of trash television out there, but when you find something good and something has 8 seasons of, you know, a show or something like a longer form show, like you really get to like it, you know, characterize to explore this idea on a much deeper level than you ever could in a movie. You get in, you know, the chance to, you know, season to season, you know, whether it's an anthology being something completely different with the same director, or whether it's the same show, get to, you know, introduce new scenes, new characters, and have enough time to just really build like a very immersive, you know, show that makes the viewing of it feel more personal. I also feel like the hype behind having, you know, TV show where, you know, like White Lotus, even though I wasn't current watching it and I started watching it, you know, kind of behind the 8 ball, and because season 3 came out, I remember, you know, just Game of Thrones, you know, when that show was airing, just the hype and just the feeling, you know, of every week just being psyched to just like sit down to watch it, and then just to have something to look forward to the next week. Like that has been consistent across both like childhood shows, you know, all the way through, you know, more, you know, lighthearted, you know, or kind of, you know, animated series, across sitcoms, across, you know, more serious things like, you know, not necessarily serious, but more like crime type things like Breaking Bad. Like there's just so much variety that you're really able to explore on a level that you can't in any other media and television. And for me, that's the big draw. And I would also say White Lotus specifically, watching that, like the people are able to really, you know, and the directors are really able to like drive in and look at these different groups that come to this, you know, resort, and to kind of get across some like themes that they're seeing, you know, which is, you know, wrong with human nature, wrong with society, and really, you know, highlight some of the issues they see. And I think that was a thing in White Lotus that we see with some of these, you know, folks, is just like the human nature issues with, the one guy in White Lotus, like he's with his like young girlfriend, and he's like kind of going crazy, and figured out, he's after, the guy who killed his dad, and we have that rivalry between, well, not really rivalry, but that Belinda lady who's there from season one, going to the hotel to learn like the resort techniques, and she kind of encounters that one guy who got into some sketchy shit. Like it really just, and then there's that North Carolina family that just really explores some like very typical, having like the dad being kind of like the patriarch who's kind of into some shady shit, and kind of like the issues that he had with his grandfather and dad, and just saying like, oh, I'm so glad my parents are dead. The mother who's kind of like an avoidant, take pills to not feel things and to be comfortable, and then like the typical Chad son, like they just have place and a long amount of time to explore like these ideas and really see them unfold, and to like kind of mesh those things together and to see how different groups interact with each other. So that's kind of my take on the point of television.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like it's the long term storytelling. Like I've still been making my way through How I Met Your Mother, and it's just incredible. Like the long term storytelling of that show. Yeah, I would say that's the draw. Like you get to become close to these characters. Like I don't know. Like I always talk about Better Call Saul or Breaking Bad, and it's like, I just feel close to those characters in a way that I don't feel as close with characters from movies, I guess. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but you just don't get to spend time as a factor, and the amount of time you spend with people, or in this case, fictional characters, matters. In terms of how close you're going to feel to them. And it's just that long-term storytelling, man. But I think
what makes you a detriment too. I was just going to jump in before you pass it. Just it could also be a detriment. Like we've seen a lot of good shows that start off well, have seasons that are complete slumps. Yeah. So I mean, it can be a detriment.
What a piece of shit Dexter turned into, dude.
Yeah.
And Game of Thrones, for that matter. Yep. God damn, dude.
That hype train crashed.
Well, this is I guess the point that I have. I have had issues. Jake knows this. And he and I have had kind of long-winded conversations about this in the past. But I've had issues with television since maybe 2019. Like maybe 2018. You would know, Jake. Like whenever I started kind of just complaining about this shit all the time. But the better half of a decade, like for the past like 5-6 years, I've had issues with television. And the issues that I've had, for me, is that it oftentimes feels like television is just a waste of time, most of the time. So this is kind of what I'm getting at. With TV shows, and I think this is kind of a root cause of that problem. With TV shows, oftentimes comes, syndication, right? And it comes that, somebody has to buy your show, whether it's Netflix, whether it's HBO, you name it, right? And with buying this show, then they give you, how TV works is then they give you a number of episodes, right? So they go, hey, we're renewing you for this season, or we're buying a season of this show from you, make so and so many episodes, right? With sitcoms like How I Met Your Mother, that usually means they have to make anywhere between 20 to 24 episodes a season, right? So that's how much content you're getting, right? And then ultimately, media has evolved, right, with Netflix and HBO shows, where they always pick up a show and they say like, hey, for this season of the show or whatever, you're going to have 8 to 10 episodes, right? And we kind of got used to that, Game of Thrones had 10 episodes each season, and then every other show that comes out these days has either 8 or 10 episodes. Latest season of The White Lotus being an example of that. So the issue that I'm having more and more and more often with television is that it feels like it's just wasting my time. Like that's the problem that I have. And I've watched, like I've given shows like a chance, Like the past few years, there was that show called Beef on Netflix that was kind of big, and I
Oh
watched
yeah, yeah.
like four of those 8 or like 10 episodes, and then I stopped. Because at that point I had invested about 4 hours of my time, and I realized the show's wasting my time. Like
Yeah, it's a show that could be a movie. It's an
exactly.
idea
That's what
that
I'm trying to
lends
say.
itself to film.
That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. And then it was the same thing with a show like The Walking Dead. When The Walking Dead was on TV, I gave up on The
God.
Walking Dead. Like I
Oh
dropped
yeah,
it.
yeah. think we
I
all
feel like
did.
that is a shared experience.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Whoever didn't give up on Walking Dead, I have questions
Yeah, right?
for you. Like, how
My
did you
dad,
stick with it?
my dad
Really?
held
Oh my
on
God.
for a long time,
You
man.
should
He
go,
was
you
Yeah.
should go into the show.
seasons after.
I think your dad still gave up though. He wasn't
Really?
all,
No,
he
he
all
did
didn't
the way
give up.
okay,
into
He
it.
did not. He did not
Yeah.
ride that train to the end, but he damn well tried.
So that's
My
my
dad and I stopped
Okay.
after 8, I think,
Yeah, I
where
stopped
they
at
like
5.
they beat Negan, and my dad and I were like, "This is unwatchable. Like, this is just so bad.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
couldn't do
once
it anymore." We were like, "We just got to let it go." I mean, it's like, and it was sad. It was like it was nostalgic. It was like one of the first TV shows, like TV dramas that I ever watched. But it was like I had to let it go.
yeah, and for me, it was the Glenn. After Glenn was gone, I was
Yeah.
just like, that's just such an important character. Like,
Yeah.
I just like,
They freed
I don't
up
know,
Stephen
Yeah.
I
Young.
just, it's just like so many important characters get clipped to where it's like, what are we even watching anymore? Like,
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, a lot
like,
of people say that's the day The Walking Dead died
Yeah.
too.
I didn't make that.
I
far.
feel like it was before that. It was like I started getting bored around season 6.
Yeah.
it
but it
was
became
just the
this
final
kinda-
straw.
Yeah, it became this ritual for my dad and I. Like even by season 5, it was pretty much.
Yeah.
No, even like halfway through season 4. I think really where it got shitty was like after the governor. It was like once the governor
Yeah.
was done, it was like clearly they've just run out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And around that same time during that season was when Breaking Bad ended. So we were all like, if you were watching both of those shows at the same time, you're like, you're just like,
Seeing this degrees of
you've been
quality.
spoiled
Yeah.
with Breaking Bad and how awesome that show was, and then you like try to watch season 4 of The Walking Dead after the governor storyline was over, and it's like, oh my god, this is the quality. The disparity in quality was so clear,
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, same with my girlfriend is on the final season of Dexter, and like her and I were talking about it, and she's like, yeah, it's like pulling teeth. I mean, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Like that show shit the bed so damn bad.
Yeah.
Even like season 7, Jack. Remember like season 7 where he's he's in the tangle with that mob boss and everything. Like it's like that
Yeah.
Ukrainian mob boss. I remember being like, oh shit, this will be dope. Like Dexter and a Ukrainian mob boss in an entanglement. That'll be fresh. And it was so lame. I just remember I tried to rewatch some episodes last year when Dexter first came to Netflix.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's like a scene where Dexter, he's sitting in a donut shop, and the mob boss drives past the donut shop, shoots at Dexter with a silenced pistol through the window, and the bullets like hit the wall behind Dexter. And Dexter's like, "Oh my god, there's a drive-by shooting," and like the owner's like, "Oh my god, I guess I'd better call the police." Dexter's like, "Ooh, good luck with that, man," and like walks out. What the fuck is this? This is
God.
so bad. It was so bad, dude. But yeah, like to your point, Edward, it's like that show became about wasting time.
Yeah.
It's when they don't have an end game. It's like it's one of two things. One, they take a movie idea and
Mhm.
try to stretch it out
Into a show.
into a TV show.
Yeah.
Beef, right? I'm sure I could come up with other.
That's a pretty good example anyway.
That's the best example I can think of.
Yeah.
Or it's the opposite problem where they try to drag it out in ad infinitum, where it's just like, holy shit, when is this going to end?
Yeah.
That was the problem with Walking Dead too.
Yeah.
It was like, dude, there's got to be. I know the zombie apocalypse, no one's reversing this, but there's got to be some kind of wrap up for these characters.
Right, and that's the crux of my issue with television, because for me, in my opinion, and this might be a controversial opinion, this might be a hot take for anybody listening. I believe that in terms of the use of the medium of film, right, that movies are a way superior use of that medium than television is. That's my perspective. That's what I believe, And the issue, like the reason why I say this is because movies don't have that. Like movies don't have the pitfalls of television that if we think about the general objective, right, of storytelling or of art, right, like the at least the way that I think about it, and you guys can disagree with me, right? Like, when I think about movies, I always think that the purpose of movies, right, is to portray this reality, this story that the filmmaker is trying to put across, right? Like that, to me, that feels like what the idea of it is, as an art form, just creating this piece, that has some kind of story or message or theme, right, to kind of put across to the audience. And then film has to exist within this medium that asks for it to live within capitalism, right? Where it's like the movie has to make capital, right? So then you have to think about it, or the way that I think about it is that, whenever we get movies, like whenever we get movies like, something like Oppenheimer, right? For a lack of a better thing that I can think of, or whenever we get a movie that feels like it made no compromises, and yet it made like a shit ton of money, it always feels like a great success, right? That's always what film was supposed to be. People making these original stories, people making this kind of expressions, their own way of creating these pieces of art, right? These kind of moving pieces of art. And they're making money out of them, because you have to make some money, because to make a movie, you have to invest money, because all this shit costs money, right?
Yeah.
So to me, that was always kind of the hurdle that film has had, historically. It's that, you have people trying to make art, and also they have to somehow manage to make money with that. And then the issue that I have with television is that I feel like television has even more pitfalls, because then television has so many cooks, right? Film already struggles with that. But then with television, I feel like you struggle with that to an nth degree, because you only have shows like Breaking Bad and like Better Call Saul, like once in a while, And the only
Oh
reason,
yeah, it's
and the only
so
reason why a show
periodic.
like that is able to exist, it's because, Vince Gilligan is literally the creator and the showrunner of the show. Like, he's the
Yeah.
showrunner.
Well, people accused him of being a control freak, and
Right.
they addressed that in an interview, and he was like, "I mean, yeah, I want to control my vision for
Right.
the show." He was like unapologetic about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and then so ultimately, Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul end up being like 5 seasons, which is rare.
Yeah, because they have an end game. They know where both of
Exactly.
those characters are going.
Exactly. And that's the issue that I have with television, that it's like for a TV show to be truly great, it's like one in like 20 TV shows, It's like
Yeah,
such a
no,
rare
it's true.
feat to have like a great TV show. And that's the issue that I've had. That's the issue that I've had with television. Because even with a show like How I Met Your Mother, right? It has like 9, 10 seasons. And the creators of the show have said that the ending for the show, they always knew the ending of the show. They always had that end game. Yet,
hmm
How I Met Your Mother stretched for 9, 10 seasons. Why was that? Because
Yeah,
they kept making money. Like
that's the problem I have with
go
that
ahead.
show, man. Well, go ahead. I want you to finish. I don't
I
want
was
to
gonna
cut you off.
say, because they kept making money, because one of the biggest and largest pitfalls for television, outside of the fact that television is bar none the most producer heavy like medium that film has, meaning that executives and showrunners have more power than anybody, in film, like in television, more power than anybody, more power than the directors. The directors are just work for hire guys, and the writers are just fucking work for hire guys. Like, if you get a writer that's also the showrunner, that's when you get great TV shows. But for the most part, that's not the case. And then the biggest issue, again, like I feel like the biggest pitfall for television is the fact that all of those people, not only the network, but all of those people have to make money. Everybody, all the actors, all the staff, everybody involved. and that the reason why shows like, The Simpsons is still going on, and The Big Bang Theory went on for like 15 seasons, and My How I Met Your Mother went on for 9 seasons. It's because all those people are fucking collecting paychecks. It just becomes their livelihood. Every season of that show, Neil Patrick Harris is collecting like $250,000 per episode. So is all the main cast. So are the creators.
Dexter was making $350 per episode.
Exactly. So there's
Michael C. Hall, the guy who played him,
incentive.
$350,000 per episode.
That's crazy,
dude. There's no
That's
incentive.
what I read, at least.
There's no incentive to end those shows. So I guess like the end of this kind of tangent that I've had with television is that television is ultimately far and beyond the most like making money is the goal version of any film medium that we have. That's just the goal. Most of the time the goal is just we're gonna make money, Jake, go ahead.
Yeah, they're stretching it out. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, oh shit. I lost
We were talking about
what I was
your
gonna
mother,
say.
like the issue that you had with it.
Oh yeah. Thanks. The issue that I have with How I Met Your Mother, like I still love that show, and I'm plowing through it because I really I dig the long-term storytelling of that show. The thing with that show, it's almost like you have sort of these key episodes every few episodes per season, and the rest is fluff. It's like, do some of the fluff episodes still entertaining? Yes. Or really most of them are still pretty entertaining. Yeah, of course. They each work as kind of these short films. Do they still provide insight into the characters? Yeah, they're still good. But sometimes I do get tempted to like skip certain episodes because I'm like, we're not going anywhere in this. It's just an episode about how Barney has this new scheme to get women to sleep with him, or he can't part with his suits.
And I don't have to tell you this, but that there's going to be the amount of those is going to increase dramatically.
Oh yeah,
and then revisiting old plots and going in circles, like that's going to dramatically expand.
Well, something that's driving me crazy about that show, dude, is they hold on to these. They overuse certain plot elements because they're easy and convenient, and they lead to more episodes. Yeah. One thing that's driving me nuts about How I Met Your Mother is how often the gang, Barney, Robin, Lily, Marshall, and Ted, keep secrets from each other. I got to a certain episode, and I'm like, you guys are fucking assholes. You guys just keep secrets from each other like every episode. Can they think? I'm like watching it. I'm like, can they think of some other way to have plots? Because these motherfuckers, who needs like there was an episode. I watched that episode where it was revealed that Lily like broke up 3 of Ted's relationships over the years, and I was like, I'm getting to a point, and like I think in the same episode there was like another secret being kept between 2 characters, and I'm like, who needs enemies when you got friends like this, dude? Like, holy shit. You can't trust any of these people. These are all, like, horrible people. I mean, so yes. I agree with you to an extent, Edward. Yeah. I will say the strength... here's the way I would put it. Television is the most misused artistic medium, or 100%. One of the most misused. Yeah, they're all misused. Sure, like, every artistic medium is misused. Like, of course, because like you look at something like music, and it's like, oh fuck, we have guys like Lil Xan or Lil, like there's some misconduct, some professional malpractice going on in a lot of mediums, but television is definitely, there's a lot of like malpractice, I would say, but. Yep. When it hits, when you have like a clear vision for where you want to take these characters, because that's what makes Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad so good. Using those shows as an example again, it's like both of those shows. Walter White, the original premise, we're going to take Mr. Chips and we're going to turn him into Scarface, right. And it was like they had that end game and then Better Call Saul, we already know where Saul's going character-wise. It's like we're taking this, con man with a heart of gold and turning him into a scumbag of a human being, and that's the strength of both of those shows. They didn't know all the they claimed to have not known all the details, and I believe that, but they knew the end game. But you look at a show like Walking Dead, and one thing that I noticed about Walking Dead I was like, Rick keeps zigzagging. He's going through. There's no overarching character arc. It's arc reverse arc. So
But
like
he's
one
such a
season,
frustrating character to
yeah,
follow
it's
him.
like one season
my
he
God.
goes dark, and then the
Yeah.
next season is him going from dark to light.
Right.
It's like you have a positive change arc, and then a negative change arc, and then a positive change arc, and it's like, holy shit! Like, take this guy in one direction or the other,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I'll say, Edward, I think... Oh, go ahead. Do you want to finish up, Jake?
I was just gonna say, or you have characters that never change at all, like Dexter, which is, again, well, Dexter changed it a little bit, but the point, the Dexter was a character where ultimately it was like, this character is sort of a drug addict. That's how I always looked at Dexter's character. I was like, this guy's a drug fiend. At the end of the day, he's never going to stop doing what he's doing.
Right.
And
but then again, the issue is like, for how long? For how long? You know.
That was the problem with that show, because by the time you get to season 5, they're clearly building toward an end game, and it's like at the end of that season, they were like, we still want to be employed.
Mm-hmm.
So they were like, get him out of another jam and let's keep it going,
Exactly.
you know? And it was like, fuck, man.
You're gonna say, Jake?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think I'm seeing what like your struggle with TV is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, if you're looking at like TV movies like as an investment of time and like what's the most enjoyment you can get out of your time, I think that you're probably on the right track, that movies are probably consistently going to give you a more satisfying stream of like enjoyment.
Right.
But I do think when you find a TV show that is masterclass, that is done really well, that ceiling that it's able to have is just so much higher.
Yeah, for sure.
And so maybe it's more pick and choosing,
yeah.
and really being selective like you are, and watch a couple episodes. I do that. I watch like, with anime, like I'm a big anime watcher. Like I'll watch pretty much any anime that's coming out each season for like 2 or 3 episodes. Then I'll be like, this is, even if it's stupid, I'm like, this is trash, this is trash, this is trash. So we'll
figure out what,
and then I'll hold on to like the couple that I like.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can really sustain it. Cause I mean, it's just like, otherwise then you end up just having a ridiculous time commitment.
Yeah.
But
I will say,
I think that movies is probably just more sustainable and more reliable.
I will say to I guess add another element of distinction for me, right, is that I am always someone who is more interested, like oftentimes I just want to see what kind of connection I can have with the work and with the people behind the work, And by that I mean is that often I'm looking just for singular people behind projects, Like I want to watch a Luca Guadagnino movie because I know it's like, well, it's Luca Guadagnino and it's his movie. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, and with television, you get less of that, because with television is just like a very much like 10 chefs in the kitchen kind of thing, where it's like you have 10 episodes and 10 people are going to direct those 10 episodes, and oftentimes 10 different people are going to write them. So it just feels, television for me just feels very impersonal. And that's kind of the issue that I have with it, because for me, I think ultimately to put a period in this tangent, unless either of you guys want to elaborate further, I think for me, it often feels like what I'm looking for is more so kind of like a personal connection, with the art and with the people behind them, and then television just feels very impersonal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that issue too much. Yeah, my thing is, I don't know. Yeah, I care more about that aspect of it doesn't bother me, I will say. But yeah, it's kind of just what I was talking about before, where it's like I need a sense of where we're going, and where, like what are we building toward,
Right.
Where is this character's arc going? And let's not waste time here. And also, if it's a movie plot, like make it a movie,
right?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I will say to cap my end of this off, you guys gotta watch Penguin. Like I was thinking of
Oh,
that
that's
this
right. The
past
show
week.
Penguin.
Yeah.
Penguin's so fucking good. That was the best show I've seen since.
That's on Max,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, Penguin was the best show. Again, like it kind of is. I will say that show is a bit guilty of like, kind of a movie idea that could like an idea that could have been a movie, and they stretch it out, but it never feels like it's wasting time.
Yeah.
It's 8 episodes, each one's an hour flat, ish, I think some of them might go a little bit beyond that, but yeah, it's just so good from top to bottom. Like I find myself whenever I think about that show, I'm like, holy shit, man, that was so good. It was just so good. It was like one of the most engaging shows I've ever watched, and one of the most ballsy pieces of media in the modern age that I've seen. There's none of that like watering down of like, oh, let's make our anti-hero actually sympathetic and a hero. It's like, no, Penguin's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
He's a bad dude.
It's a Batman villain.
And yet you're kind of with him because there's like, there's an aspect of it where he's still this underdog within the context of his universe. He's this mob associate who nobody respects, and you kind of want to see like what he does to move up the ladder and take advantage of this power vacuum that's left after the Batman movie.
Yeah.
It's so good. That was one of the best. That was like it felt like a classic 90s gangster movie in the modern day, where it really just felt like I was watching Scorsese or something, like in the modern age, which is so rare nowadays. Like everything's so watered down these days, I feel like.
Yeah. Okay.
A lot of negativity on this show.
This episode, yeah, dude, that's what I've come in with.
Shit tangents.
Yeah, this has been a very it's like when you watch an anime and they have that little thing over their head. It's like this has been a very like edgy, agitated. It's steam.
Yeah.
Just like this has been a very agitated tangent. That being said, the movie of the week is called Heartache. It's directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It came out in 1996. It's written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. And it stars Philip Baker Hall, John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, and the great man, myth, legend Samuel L. Jackson.
Yes.
Guys, take it away. What do you guys think about the movie?
Dude, I liked Heartache, man.
Yeah.
I love Paul Thomas Anderson.
Yes.
He's one of the greats,
He's
man.
one of the greats.
I still got to watch some of his. I haven't completed his filmography. I still got to watch Licorice Pizza.
Yeah.
I still got to watch Miami Vice, but I've seen
Miami Vice is Michael Mann movie.
Or no, yeah, not Miami Vice.
Inherent
What's the other
Vice.
one? Vice.
Inherent Vice.
Inherent Vice.
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad. Thank you. Inherent Vice.
Yeah.
That's the one I was thinking of. I'm just picturing like the two, neon legs and like the neon title of the movie, the poster. Yeah.
Paul, if you're listening, you're
titles.
welcome to come to the show. No, but there's like very little conversation about this movie online. This might be one of the podcasts that actually has something. So if you're reminiscing and you're listening to us, you're invited to have a chat with us. Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah. So I still need to see Licorice Pizza, Inherent Vice. I've seen Boogie Nights. That's a freaking classic of 90s cinema. Like I was thinking yesterday, I think while I was watching this movie, I was like, dude, if I'm thinking of the best movie decades, there's really no other
90s.
answer except for the 70s or the 90s.
Yeah, 70s and the 90s, that's it.
And the 80s being the best for genre film.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 80s had the best horror movies, sci-fi, and like comedies and fantasy, action. But in terms of like dramas and like serious films, crime dramas, or just straight dramas, it's the 70s and the 90s, man. Yeah. And like Boogie Nights is one of the staples of the 90s.
100%.
And then you got Phantom Thread is incredible.
Yeah.
The Master's great. So Paul Thomas Anderson is a goat.
There will be blood.
And
Punch
Oh,
Drunk
There Will Be
Love.
Blood.
Yeah.
Yep. I knew I was missing something in there. I'm sure I'm missing. I know I've seen.
I think
don't
you
know.
haven't seen.
Oh, Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah, Punch Drunk Love. I think you haven't seen Magnolia either, right? So you're missing like 3 movies.
Yeah. I haven't seen Magnolia. So,
And he
but
has a new
Hard
one
Eight.
coming out soon with DiCaprio.
That's right. And what is that coming out? That's coming out
September.
this year?
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. But yeah, Hard Eight. I really enjoyed Hard Eight. My girlfriend and I watched it last night. She enjoyed it too. As I'm watching it, like it definitely is slow to get moving, and you're wondering where it's going. All I knew about this movie was that it was about gambling, and that it was labeled a crime film. And when I started it, I forgot that it was labeled crime. So I'm sitting there like in the first 30 minutes, I'm like, okay, this is just going to be a slice of life drama kind of thing. Like that was my first thought. Because again, I went in so cold. I was just like, whatever.
Yeah.
I just went into it. Let's see what this is about. I trust PTA too.
Yeah.
And I think like 20, 30 minutes in, my girlfriend even said, she was like, this movie, like nothing's happened, and yet it's so engaging.
Yeah.
She was like, I can't take my eyes off this. And I agree. Like, because PTA, like Tarantino, just has this ability to write these scenes that have just enough there in terms of a direction of like where we're going with this scene and how this scene is at least going somewhere. You don't know how it contributes to the actual plot, but at least within the scene, you kind of see who wants what, and we're moving forward slightly. And of course, the dialogue is superb, and the direction's superb. The camera work is just so well made, and yeah, just found it really interesting at first. You got this guy, the old guy, Sidney, I think his name was.
Yeah, Sydney.
He's helping out this John character, and then he's helping out Gwyneth Paltrow's character. And, I'm kind of like intrigued right off the bat because I'm like, what? Why is he helping these people?
Yeah, it's like, why are you doing this? Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew that the answer, I trusted PTA to give me the answer at some point because he's a director that's really, really interested in character and character wounds. He's someone who, you think of like Phantom Thread. That's a very wounded character. He has those fever dreams about his mother. And so I knew we were going somewhere, and so I'm really intrigued about that. And then then he drops kind of this hint of like, oh, I had a wife and kids, but I don't know where they're living. I haven't talked to them in a while. So I'm like, oh, okay. So this is sort of a kind of surrogate situation. Then you get the movie had this insane ability to just build upon itself and take its time building upon itself. Because then you hit this moment, you get to this moment where Sidney walks into this hotel room, and I love this moment because he walks into the hotel room and he's talking to John C. Reilly, and the camera just hangs on them as they're looking at something off screen for like 3 minutes, and you're just like, what are you looking at? Show me! And then they, it drives you nuts. And finally, you see that they have this, they're in a pickle because they have this guy handcuffed to the bed who, was a client of Gwyneth Paltrow that hit her and then wouldn't pay her, and it escalated from there. And so then this crime element gets introduced, and you're like, oh, wow, okay, this is going somewhere. Might be 35 minutes in, but we're going somewhere now. And it immediately you put yourself in Sidney's shoes because you start thinking like, what would I do in this situation? So it's really engaging. Like I love like crime cleanup scenes in film and television. Oh man, if you do it well, they're so good. Because nothing puts you in the shoes of another character like a crime cleanup.
Trying to get out of that mess.
Yeah, because you're immediately just like, what the fuck would I do? Like, how would I handle this if I walked in on something like this? And then the movie builds upon itself even more because Samuel L. Jackson's character came in, and I had forgotten
Yeah,
about
right. You
his
forget
character.
about that guy, but he was there.
I was like,
Yeah.
I haven't seen this guy in like 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like 30 minutes.
But they remind you of him
And-
even in that scene because Clementine, Gwyneth Paltrow, goes like, Jimmy knows.
Yeah.
You know. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And then they drop that bombshell on you about
Killed his father.
the fact that Sydney had killed Jean's father.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, it recontextualizes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. I knew kind of where it was going because once he handed that money over to Samuel L. Jackson, I was like, he's going to kill Sam Jackson. And then when he talked on the phone with John, and it really cemented the fact that, Sydney really feels now like he has sort of made up for his past.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, well, this guy doesn't want to undo any of that
Yeah,
now.
dude, when you
He's
get
definitely
when
killing
you get
Sam
that
Jackson.
scene, right? And that scene is like the emotional crux of the film, and he goes like, John, I just want to tell you that I love you as if you were my own son.
Yeah.
And then John C. Reilly gets really emotional, and he says thank you. That whole shot goes on for like maybe like a minute and a half, and then at the very end he goes like, like I love you too. And then at that point you're like, there it is. Like he has it. Like he got that from John C. Reilly, like that moment of being like, you've kind of done this thing that you set out to do. Yeah. And now the only thing standing in your way is the fact that this other guy knows. This other guy still knows. And John's still not in Nevada, like in the Niagara Falls, so that hasn't talked to him. So you have this window of time of opportunity to deal with that. But go ahead.
Yeah, got to close the loop now. Yeah, so and I mean the ending was solid, if a bit predictable. I mean, I knew where it was going. But yeah, the only issue, my girlfriend and I both kind of agreed on this, and we talked about it after. We were like, it would have been way stronger if the initial scene, John had said, I need $6,000 to bury my father. Mm-hmm. Why was he burying his mother? It seems like such an easy fix. It seems like it would have been so much more meaningful for that scene, that to be recontextualized as well.
Yes, I agree.
Like, oh my God, he's burying his father. And it's such an easy fix. I just didn't understand. In fact, I said this to her. I said, it's so easy that you could almost just replace the word mother with father in your own in your head canon, and it's like an infinitely better movie.
Yeah.
Or not infinitely better, but just that much better.
Yeah, it's interesting that he didn't do that. It's interesting because you would think that he would have kind of thought about that or realized that at some point. So that would be like an interesting question to ask, like PTA, like why would you make that choice? Like if you like if you have this character who's I guess both their parents are dead, but if you have this character and you can kind of give the audience this piece of information that later on is going to kind of come back up into the film, it's interesting that he would choose to not do that, which is very strange.
Yeah, and I the way I described it when she and I were talking about it, I was like, it's very similar to it's a similar creative decision to like Dragged Across Concrete, where Jennifer Carpenter's character was not the hostage. It was like, it's such an easy fix that would have made things way more meaningful. Like the only thing left it on the table.
Yeah, the only reason that I can think of for why maybe he would do that is that it would be like, I don't want the audience thinking about that, like I don't want the audience thinking about his dad, or I don't want the audience I don't want people to be like, oh, Sidney kills his dad and that's why he's helping him, like that's the only reason,
make the twist more predictable.
Yeah, I think that's the only reason, because like John really grills him. He's like, why are you helping me? It's like, are you trying to get me to do this and that? I'm not gonna do that.
Right.
And he's like, no, I'm just a man offering you.
Vividly.
No, he's like, I'm just a man offering you courtesy. I feel like that's the only reason, that it would just be like, this is the only way for me not to make this like obvious to the audience, like, oh, he killed his dad. But like you said, ultimately, I think adding it would have benefited the movie, but also not adding it, in retrospect, it doesn't deflate the movie as much as anything else, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but go ahead, Jack. What about you?
Yeah, I on that point, I think that if it was the dad, and maybe it's like showing, like kind of keeping it a little more imperfect, I feel like it would have almost been too perfect of a full circle if it was the dad who had died at first. It's almost too well lined up and too just predictable and perfect, kind of like what Edward was saying.
Yeah, because it
But
hides the crime.
Little too tidy.
Yeah,
yeah,
it hides that that's even a thing. Because at that point in the movie, you're just probably thinking like, his dad is off somewhere, and then it's like, oh no,
yeah,
somebody killed his
it makes
dad.
the dad an afterthought. You never
Yeah.
even think about his dad. You're just like, his mom died. Nobody's, he's got no other family. Like,
Yeah.
that's his. But I found these characters really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Just like the fact that John is just kind of like a pet almost, in a way where it's just like, Sydney finds him in a place where he's drifting. He doesn't know where he's heading. He's down on his luck. He has no money, and kind of just like adopts him. And kind of makes him, I mean, a pet's a bad word, but kind of like a son. And we kind of see John's character just being somebody who's just very dependent and very like, just needing the advice, whether it's from is it Jimmy? Was Jimmy Samuel L. Jackson's
Yes.
character, or was it
Jimmy.
Yeah, whether it's from like the having the friend Jimmy, it seemed like he sought approval from him, or from Sydney. It's like he's very much just somebody who needs guidance throughout this movie and is not really able to take many steps himself. And then kind of the motivations we see with Sydney is like he's too nice, he's doing too much, like he's kind of shady in the way that like he's just out here living in Vegas with kind of nobody with him, just kind of on his own, just gambling. Like it just really made me question, like what's going on with this guy? Like it just doesn't make sense. And then the stuff with the wife and kids, even though it's like, even if he had a wife and kids, why are we just in Vegas, just just gambling and just kind of getting by? It's just kind of strange. And then kind of the perplexing situation of Clementine, who's like a waitress and kind of not allowed to not flirt with customers, and she'll get fired for that, but also like kind of stuck in the place where it's like she's actually being a prostitute and also kind of being liable to be fired from her current job as that. So it's kind of like a weird predicament that she's in, both of them, and kind of a weird situation with Sydney kind of being a guiding figure for both of them. I did feel like Jake said, like it was like not a lot happened up until we get into that motel room, and not necessarily in a bad way. Also, before I move on, I was trying to say this first, but I think you said this was the first PTA film, right? This was it did not feel like a first film to me at all.
No, I thought this was going to be way more low budget.
Yeah,
like,
and
feel way more low budget anyway.
Yeah, and if you take this and compare it to last week's Reservoir Dogs, I mean, yes, Reservoir Dogs was pretty dang good for a first film. This kind of jumps that expectation to the next level. It just and that might not be necessarily in terms of like the actors, but just the access to even just having a casino just gives so many different scenic changes to be in the casino, at the slot machine, at the craps table, at the blackjack, at the bar. There's just so many good places to have these scenes.
To add a little bit of more
really
context,
yeah,
this movie was made in '96 and Reservoir Dogs was made in '92, and they were made for relatively the exact same amount of money. Like Reservoir Dogs is estimated to be made between like 1.5 to 3 million. Like it costs about that much money. And then Hard Eight cost about $3 million. So they're made basically for the exact same amount of money. I think a lot of the money for Reservoir Dogs went to the actors. But I guess with this movie, you had a lot more. John C. Reilly was very new, and so was Gwyneth Paltrow. Like we know those people now, but then they were not known people. And Philip Baker Hall is not Harvey Keitel. Like he's not the kind of guy. Like Philip Baker Hall always was a character actor, just the kind of guy that you would see in like a really cool key role, but not like a leading role. So I think PTA was able to push really far with this movie and the locations and the things he was able to do because he was working with kind of relatively unknown folks. But go ahead.
And I think that just made this like movie just do and look and just view so well. That was one of my gripes with Reservoir Dogs last week, was just feeling like we're kind of anchored in the same place, where this movie felt like we were constantly, both anchored to this casino, but also constantly changing locations and, viewing different parts of the casino, going to the motel rooms, going to the diner, which was a pretty key point, going out to eat food. And like this movie felt like a lot more sense of like a journey and the way that things happen. Loved the idea that we have like kind of like a dual layered plot with the setting, kind of sowing the seeds of discord between Sydney and Jimmy, like early, their first interactions. Like these guys don't like each other at all, and like Jake said, like with the later information, it kind of recontextualizes some of that stuff as well. Like if Jimmy knew this from the beginning, like of course, you know, they're not going to get along, and I really kind of liked that that was hinted, but never really like hard pushed until like that Samuel L. Jackson plot comes back around, and we're really focused and honed in on this hostage situation where Sydney has to clean up and try to get them out of that situation. And after you get out of there, you get a false sense of security and being like, okay, like they're gone.
Yeah.
Like maybe the police will catch them and maybe it'll develop that way, but like they kind of escaped it. And then next thing you know, that false sense of security has really been like swept out from under your feet, and Sydney's in that held at gunpoint, gun in the face moment. That's really a powerful moment, I think, because when he has, when Jimmy has Sydney in his car, like it just does not seem like that escalated. Like it seems like they're having a conversation. Jimmy's being a little forceful with like, "Hey, I'm talking to you. Like, don't just walk away." And then all of a sudden, it's just like, boom, windows cracked, like gun in your face.
But dude, the thirst that Sam Jackson portrayed in that scene.
Oh
of like,
my god,
the goddamn money! Like all of a sudden, you were like, "Oh, this guy's feeding for this money."
Oh yeah,
this guy's got problems only $10,000
can solve for him. Yeah, dude, 100%. Because he looks at Sydney as like this jackpot, right? It's like, oh, I know you. You're the guy. Yeah. You're this old timer guy. They keep calling him old timer. Like, you're this old timer that did this one thing, and I got you, But like you said, Jack, like that first scene when he goes like, "Oh, I work security," and then Sydney disrespects him. Like Sydney kind of goes out of his way to disrespect him because he's like, "Oh, you do security outside." And then that's slide at Samuel Jackson because he goes like, "No, I work inside the casino," So it's like this slice that he has with him. And then, later on in the movie, Samuel Jackson brings that back and he goes like, "You disrespect me. I work inside the casino. I'm trusted with security." Wonderful. Like that whole monologue that Sam Jackson has with him at the hotel, where he's just kind of getting everything off his chest, is so fucking like hilarious, but also great, And for the big calls, he's like, "Oh my god, what am I gonna do?" And he's like, "I got the money's downstairs," Great stuff. Anything else you guys want to
add? Not too much. Just other than I think that it was pretty satisfying ending. With kind of him just going from this, guy that, Sydney's just kind of like, oh, this father figure, like he's kind of, seems harmless on the surface. Like he treats the, Clementine's character really well. Like he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to have sex with you. I wouldn't even think of doing such a thing." And like, being, the downfall of, the light we see on this character from going to somebody who seems like he's out to be, this altruistic, just helping people out guy, to really seeing him at his core of being somebody, who will kill, to further his own self-interest. And I really thought that was a good depiction of that.
Yeah, he has a past.
Yeah. I mean, I would say it was good, but also there's part of me that's kind of like, you could have taken this idea a little further. Mm-hmm. Like, I almost feel like you could have condensed the events of this movie into the first half of a story and then continued it on after. Like, what are the implications? Like, what happens after he kills this guy? What are the consequences of that? And then is does John eventually find out anyway, and then like it seems like an idea you could take further, and it's almost like he just kind of dragged out this. It's like he dragged out the first half of a story in a way. It just feels like you could. It just feels like an idea you could take further. I guess is the best
I
way
would agree
to say that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my only gripe. Because some movies, it's like you can't. It's like movies like this, you can't really, you can't boil down exactly why it's not better than you think it is. Other than that, other than just by design, it's like you could have done more with this, or there's just kind of like this glass ceiling that it hits, where it's like no matter what, this is just kind of as good as it can. This version of this story seems to be for me.
Yeah. Pretty solid first flick, isn't it? It's also
kidding.
cool that he found, because with him, unlike Tarantino, because Tarantino's longtime collaborator in terms of like his cinematographer is rather Robert Richardson, and he didn't do Reservoir Dogs with him. So he kind of came on later on in Tarantino's career. But with Paul Thomas Anderson, he found his cinematographer right away. This is a show about Robert Elswist, whom he shot every PTA movie up to The Master, because The Master was somebody else, and then he shot Inherent Vice, and then PTA has been shooting his own movies since then. So he's been his own cinematographer, so he's taken up on more credits in his own movies. But with this movie, it was shot by like the guy that he ended up collaborating with for a long time, because then they made Boogie Nights and so on and so forth together. Boogie Nights being like his great known 90s movie, which you haven't seen that, Jack. You could check that out. That's one of those like 90s.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
it's like it's kind of like Wolf of Wall Street, but instead of sales, it's porn. Like that's kind of it's like a very similar kind of movie. It's like this in terms of the timeline. It's like an epic over a long period of time of just this crazy lifestyle. It's that kind of movie. It's so good. Boogie Nights is great.
Yeah.
I need to rewatch that. I only saw it once, and it was like 6 years ago, probably.
Yeah. But this movie like has a lot of the things that a lot of his kind of obsessions. Kind of a lot of them are here. Those tight close-ups, shooting on film, and then his obsession with like this character wounds and this kind of surrogate families that his characters build. So a lot of this is like Anderson light, and then the following movies kind of build on everything else. But what will your guys' ratings be for Hard 8? Oh, and also I have to mention, Philip Seymour Hoffman is in this movie. In that scene, he's gambling, and he's just like, "Come on, old timer," and he's like doing the Hard 8, and he doesn't get it.
Oh, that was a good scene.
Yeah, that's a great
scene. That was such a fun scene.
Yeah.
But what are you? Nice mullet.
Yeah, he does have a nice
Seymour Hoffman.
Oh yeah.
But
yeah, I'd give this a 7.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff?
7.
I got at an 8.
Yeah, I got this also at a 7. So this is 2 7s and 1 8 for us.
7.3 for Film Tangents.
All right. Hey, everybody, great. Jake, what do you guys for us? What do you got for us for next week?
So I was trying to think of a springtimey movie for us, and I went kind of down a couple different avenues. I was like, well, my first thought was like, well, Easter's coming up, so maybe we do like a Easter / biblical kind of movie, but those are all like 3-hour biblical epics. Right, yeah. The day Film Tangents died. The day Film Tangents died was when they picked Veggie Tales one week. No, I'll never do that, at least. So yeah, I was like, well, all these biblical epics are like 3.5 hours long, so I was like, I don't know, let's not go down that road. We watch those on our own time if we want to. So I was like, well, let me go down another springtimey route. So I decided on the 80s, I believe it's 80s baseball comedy called Major League, starring Charlie Sheen.
Okay. Major League.
Yeah, it's a movie that the poster really caught my eye. Like when I first saw it on Letterboxd, and I was like, "That's a beautiful poster," and it's a cult classic. So I was like, "Hey, it's spring. Let's watch a baseball movie." So it's a cult classic. So we'll see. We'll see if we want to join that cult as well with Major League next week. See how that is.
Okay. All right.
But yeah.
All right, everybody. Well, before we bring this episode to a close, why don't we do our weekly recaps? Jake, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. I watched. Let's see, movie wise, I watched. The only movie I watched was a few days ago. Besides Heart 8, I watched for the first time a Tom Hanks film from 1989 called The Burbs, directed by Joe Dante.
I think I've seen the
Director
poster for
of
that. Is it just like him, like wearing scrubs or something?
Yeah, and he's
Okay.
got a hose in his hand. It's
Yeah.
a really striking poster.
Yes.
A lot of times these movies have just really good posters, and I'm like, "What's that?"
the
And
movie
I click
sucks.
on it, and then, right, yeah. That was the case with Major League. Like, I saw the poster, I was like, "That's a nice looking poster," and I clicked on it, and I'm like, "It looks good enough. It's got high ratings, whatever." Like high letterboxd ratings. But yeah, Joe Dante was the director, famous for Gremlins, The Howling, Piranha, a segment in Twilight Zone, the movie, Looney Tunes Back in Action. Very kind of interesting director. And I gotta say, The Burbs. I wanted to like The Burbs, but it's interesting. The concept basically goes like this: when secretive new neighbors move in next door, suburbanite Ray Peterson and his friends let their paranoia get the best of them as they start to suspect the newcomers of evil doings and commence an investigation. But it's hardly how Ray, who much prefers drinking beer, reading his newspaper, and watching a ball game on the tube, expected to spend his vacation. So, you kind of got this interesting concept. I felt there were a lot of shades of movies before that came out before it and after it in it. So, like the creepy neighbor next door kind of reminded me a little bit of Fright Night, there were shades of a future film Home Alone, which came out a couple years later, I think 1 year later, in terms of like, watching someone do something that could be misconstrued as suspicious, and like, oh, maybe that guy's a serial killer because he's, taking his trash out late at night and he beat it with a shuffle, or whatever. And so it was interesting, and it just it just meanders. It's just this meandering movie that doesn't really. It's like there's also shades of Sandlot in it too. Same kind of thing, right? Urban legends are sewn in there. You got kind of similar stuff in the Sandlot, right? Where they're like all these stories get told about this neighbor and his dog kills and eats people and the owner is a really mean old man. It's you got those elements in there, right? This kind of neighborhood watch type movie. And but the problem is when you look at movies like The Sandlot, for instance, you have a number of different scenes that are just super super fun. Where it's like, how are these kids gonna try to get this Babe Ruth signed baseball out of this yard without getting eaten by this supposedly killer dog, right? Like, and you get to see what they do. They lower someone in via a rope. They build a Rector set robot and send it in to try to get the ball over. Whereas like the Burbs, none of their shenanigans are entertaining whatsoever. They're just very lazy. Like it just feels like a very lazy movie where there's nothing like that. There's nothing memorable that happens. All their investigations, like at one point they're like, well, why don't we just go over there and knock on the door and bring him brownies? And it's like, this is boring, you know? So it really is just a problem of plot execution that makes this movie just not really worthwhile. I will say, like, the only what I did get out of this movie was thematically, it was kind of interesting in the sense of like you have sort of these neighbors who you look at them and it touches on themes of suburban boredom, of just the boredom and drudgery of suburban life, where like Jack and I have experienced that in the suburb we live in, where, you look around and you see like the Facebook group sometimes and you're like, man, some of you guys need to get a hobby. You're like, it's the same posts every day. Oh, I saw these kids go, driving their dirt bikes down the road at 10 miles an hour. Someone could get hurt. It's like, all right, like you guys need to like do something besides watch the neighborhood. So they tackled that theme in kind of an interesting way, but again, just the plot execution sucked and was really boring.
Yeah.
So again, I wanted to like it, but and I kind of realized while I was watching it, I was like, there's a reason some movies are obscure. There's some
not that good.
like it's like there's some movies that are obscure and they're hidden gems, but then there's other movies where it's like, yeah, like it's a good idea and the poster's good, but it's obscure because it sucks, and that there's just nothing else to it. And the reason the Burbs is obscure and Home Alone is not is because Home Alone's awesome and entertaining and fun and memorable, and the Burbs isn't. So anyway, I gave that movie a 4 out of 10. And that was the only movie I watched. As far as reading goes, I think I'm about to start reading a novel called Bad Man by Dathan. I'm going to butcher his name, so I'm going to look at it real quick here. I think it's Nathan. Come on, Goodreads. Where's my list? Bad Man by Dathan Auerbach. The reason I want to start this novel, I saw it in a bookstore the other day, and I've read his other novel called Pen Pal. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before.
Mm-hmm.
Pen Pal is one of the most famous sort of creepypastas of all time. It started off as a series of Reddit posts by the author, and then they gained a lot of traction and a lot of popularity, and he compiled them into a novel, and it sort of becomes this first person blog formatted novel. And Pen Pal I read a couple years ago around Halloween time. I think it was like 2 Halloweens ago. And it's one of those books. Basically, the concept of Pen Pal is you've got this guy who's recounting childhood memories that are seemingly at first out of context and have no relation to each other. But when he starts to put them together, he realizes that they're puzzle pieces that lead to a very gruesome and disturbing picture. And the catalyst is essentially when he was like 5, his kindergarten class had this project where they would release balloons into the air with a photo of them on the string, essentially. And then someone in town would find the balloon and become their pen pal, essentially. Horrible idea for a school project if you have any concern for the kids' safety. As someone who's read this novel, if you're a teacher out there and you're thinking about doing this project, please don't. Please don't do this. It's not going to lead anywhere good. Pen Pal is a 10 out of 10 novel. It was one of those books. It was one of those stories that when I finished it, I wanted to unread it. I was like, holy shit. It is so psychologically disturbing. It's unbelievable how much of an effect that story had on me after I read it. I mean, I felt like I had been put through the ringer when I finished this book. I was so psychologically disturbed. This story haunts me. And I'm about to read his other book, so we'll see how that goes. Bad Man. We'll see if Bad Man
Good
lives
luck.
up to Pen Pal. Yeah, we'll see if it has if it's anywhere near as effective as Pen Pal. I'll probably be fairly quiet one of these near future episodes, but
I'll probably read.
so-
I'll probably read Pen Pal too.
dude, oh my god, you can't unread it. Just I'll tell you that. But yeah, Pen Pal is like, it's hard to even think of anything you could compare Pen Pal to. I mean, it's like it's a bit like Prisoners, I guess, the movie Prisoners, but with a more horror edge.
Okay.
Prisoners, Zodiac, a little bit. Oh my god, dude. But that's it. That's it for me.
Jack, what do you got?
I don't have too much this week. Short week. I didn't watch any movies. Did a little bit of vetting of, like a new anime season that came out, and one that I've been watched the first episode of the third season of Fire Force that came out. It's kind of an idea that it's like a fire department type thing, but the people in the squads have these powers, and the people in Japan are kind of like they kind of combust like out of nowhere. So these firefighters try to like go to the scene and investigate and to try to like put these people out, or like they have like priests. It's very religious as well, like the church and these kind of military fire forces very intertwined.
Have you seen Soul Eater? It's by the same guy that did that. He did this thing, but I haven't seen either of them. But I know that information.
Yeah, I've seen Soul Eater. It hasn't been something that I've had on the list, but I've definitely known about it and kind of have that like cover art burned into my head a little bit from seeing it a bunch of times scrolling through different animes. But I think it's going to be a really interesting season from the way that they started it off, and it's been a couple years since they had one, so it's one of them where I don't know what I'm going to have to do, but I'm a little bit far removed from what happened in the first two seasons, so I don't know if that's going to be a rewatch or how I'm going to handle that. But I felt a little bit like, I don't really think I remember as much as I thought I did about this for the first episode, so might have to double back. But it was a really good first episode. Other than that, I started playing the Ghost of Tsushima.
Oh, dude, I've been meaning to play that.
Yeah, it's kind of on the same kind of grind that you and me have been on with these like Souls-like games. Where basically what kind of prompted me onto playing this game was the new Assassin's Creed came out. That is a Japan-themed game. I went and went into the Steam store, like read the comments. It's like, what are people thinking of this game? Did some research. Not very good. Not very good reviews. Not a lot of people love this game. It had a lot of complaints about like progression not really being incentivized in this game. And a lot of the things that I saw, a couple comments I saw were like, if you want to play a game like this, play Ghost of Tsushima. and it recently came to Steam because PlayStation, I think it was semi-recently. PlayStation's kind of weird and gatekeepy with their exclusives and when they're brought to PC. But I actually have a PS Now subscription right now that's like $15 a month because you can cloud stream some of their games on the app on your PC. Pain in the ass to set up. Terrible interface. Just overall like a 2 out of 10 experience to get set up. But the reason I did that was to get access to play Bloodborne as well. So I ended up going on a tangent and starting Ghost of Tsushima. But Bloodborne's going to be next after this one.
Enjoy. I love my experience with Bloodborne. Like I think I give that game like a 9.5 out of 10. Like I had a few gripes, and you'll probably you'll play and then you'll tell me, you'll be like, Edward, this, and I'll be like, yes, that.
Yeah.
But
people rave about that game.
Yeah, it's one of the best fucking games ever. Like it was such a great experience, dude.
Yeah. But this is very like Assassin's Creed like game. Like it really does give that. But one of the things that I really like being like a just attention deficit like junkie is like a lot of times in some of these games, man, I'm just like X X X X X, like right through the dialogue. I don't give a fuck, like whatever. Like I don't care. Let me like kill somebody or like the mission. Like, and it's just a terrible thing. This game locks you in, man. Like the story, like you're locked in. You're not getting past it. Like it forcibly immerses you in the story.
Just watch the story, just chill.
And I'm like, wait, the story's actually kind of good.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought? Like, but so that's been like a good part of that. But another really cool, like, small aspect is like usually, in a lot of these like RPG games, when you put like a waypoint and you're like, I'm trying to get here, and then you like go out of the menus and you go back and there's like a line or like there's like a mini
It's like
map.
the wind, right?
It's the wind. In Ghost of Tsushima, you press the touchpad and scroll it, and there's like a visible wind with like, leaves and cherry blossoms like going towards it. And it makes the game just look so beautiful as you're kind of going across and adventuring through this land. It feels a lot more immersive, a lot more beautiful to look at. And like it just kind of actually forces you to be a little more like attentive. And just like not following a line and just like coasting like a GPS in your car or something. So far, really like this game. Haven't gotten too far, but I mean it's great. The combat's awesome. There's like a great incentive of a mesh between something like Elden Ring that's very Souls like games where you're very incentivized to do dodging, but also at the same time some parry mechanics that keep it fresh, and kind of having a balance between those of really like a very skillful gameplay, and then starting to build different things of having like a bow and arrow, having like a unlocking abilities to where you can throw like a kunai, like and I haven't even scratched the surface of what you're able to do, but like it's really really cool gameplay.
Yeah, it's on my list.
Yeah, I so far if it stays on this, I'd highly recommend it. But I can't give that.
These East Asian settings are becoming pretty popular. Like I'm looking at this right now because like you got that in video games, but then you have like I know the Poppy War in the fantasy novel series Poppy War. I think that was East Asian inspired too. That's becoming a popular aesthetic right now, which is good. I mean, we need a break from the medieval Europe stuff.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that's what that Bloodborne and all those games is.
I read Sword of Kaigen last year. Also a very similar setting. Great book as well. Very good.
Okay.
Would recommend that one too for if you're looking for a setting similar to that. But the last thing I'm going to talk about is it wasn't even like that long of a viewing experience, but I've like kind of rediscovered watching YouTube because I'm not a big YouTube guy, but I have a VR headset, right? I figured out this week that the watching YouTube in the VR headset is exceptional. It's like it's really freaking good, dude. So like you put it on and it's like this huge screen just in front of you, like you're at a movie theater or something, watching YouTube videos, and like it's actually it's awesome. Like I'm like, what the heck? Like, why did I never check this out? It's so
you
good.
You should watch police activity videos. It's like what do you call those? Why am I blanking on what the camera is called? Body cam footage.
Oh, that'd
be sick in in VR. Holy shit!
Yeah, and you can get in there with friends and run like watch parties and stuff. Huh?
What's the name of the set that you have?
The VR set? I just have the Quest 2.
Quest 2.
Yeah, and I've been playing some mini golf games, and I have this Dungeons of Eternity game that's just awesome. But I watched a tennis match from a long time ago. Yeah. A 2001, I believe. No, let me double check this because I just had it pulled up. I believe it was a 2001 match of 2001 Wimbledon match between Roger Federer and Pete Sampras.
I knew you were gonna say that.
Oh my god. I mean, and it was just like I grew up, just like thinking Federer was great. Really liked his play style, his finesse. Like, if you're just talking about like tennis, just as a skill, like at its peak skill, and not being not as much modern tennis, but just the finesse. Like Roger Federer is just like one of the number one people that comes to mind. I'm not sure anybody else has played the game with as much finesse as he has.
Yeah.
But this match was a very interesting match. Watching an older style of tennis I had not seen in a while. Kind of seeing Sampras past his prime a little bit.
For sure.
On the decline, and the young buck Federer playing and on the grass, and just seeing this like very different style of tennis, very serve and volley, incentivized, like very big serves. Both of these guys have massive serves. I mean, some of these games, it was literally just like game to love, like just blow you away with 4 serves, like you're done. And really both of them having the one hand backhand just kind of almost feeling like a crutch.
Yeah.
I mean, the one hand backhand at its finest, there's a weapon, but a lot of the times it's not. It's a liability, and that's why we see so many two-handed backhands in the modern day. Is just it's so much more consistent, so much more versatile, and leads to a lot more of these baseline rallies that you don't see back in this time. But it was just such a fun thing to watch, and really just kind of gave me more insight and even more impressed with Federer over the course of his career, coming from something like, very serve and volley incentivized play, slower, less strokes, going with Nadal, and then into like the Djokovic era, like going to a very different baseline incentive gameplay where we have long drawn out, and the fact that he had to evolve his play style to kind of stay relevant and still pick up some wins here and there, and in a time where he did not develop his play style to win against those guys. He was at a disadvantage against Nadal every time he played. Nadal was literally a weapon created to beat him, essentially. So
both him and Djokovic.
It was him and Djokovic. And I mean, it was like a short 30 minutes, kind of fun to see it sped up and wash through it in a short amount of time. But I mean, it definitely made me want to get back out on court and play. So just wanted to bring that up. It was cool. It's a fun watch.
Yeah, I feel that. Well, I'm going to close us out. For me, I watched watched 3 movies. Other than the movie of the week, I rewatched Heat. Over the weekend, and just
I saw that.
So much appreciation for that movie. Funnily enough, I think me and Langston both watched it over the weekend, because I saw that he also posted that he watched the film. 9 out of 10. I bumped it up from an 8 to a 9. I should have done that years ago, but I hadn't rewatched it in so long. Incredible movie. The watermark of this kind of just crime thriller heist films. This is like the high watermark of that. Not much to say because we talked about it last week. And obviously I also watched it because Val Kilmer passed away. But incredible movie. Other than that, I watched The Day the Earth Stood Still. I don't know if you guys have heard about that movie.
Oh yeah, was that Scott Derrickson with Keanu Reeves?
No, I'm talking about like the one from 1951.
Oh,
yeah, the original. The original was directed by Robert Wise.
I haven't seen either, but I didn't know there was an original.
But the original was directed by the guy that made The Sound of Music. This is how old this movie is.
Oh wow!
Wow!
But then they remade it into some, I guess, schlock because everybody hates that movie. But the original movie is just about this sci-fi kind of pulpy movie. Alien arrives on Earth, and then the whole movie is just kind of waiting around until he says what he's there for. I gave it a 6 out of 10 just because I feel like the movie kind of fell flat. Like it kind of rested on its laurels a little bit, and it's like, well, there's not that much going on in that movie to really justify an hour and a half of film. It's really kind of like a short. It's really one of those kind of like the X-Files like kind of things. Like it really should be like an episode, like a 30, 45-minute thing, and stretch into a whole movie. Nonsense. Yeah. Like the movie just falls completely flat on its face. And maybe a 6 of me being a little bit generous, but the movie does look very beautiful, and there's a lot of kind of interesting pathos and stuff that happens in it. But ultimately, there not much happens. And then in the end of the movie is like everything's kind of back to where it began. Nothing grand happens in this movie, and then the movie kind of ends very flatly. And from the poster with this big robot, like, with this shining like beam from his eye, you would think that the movie has like a lot of great like sequences of like chaos and the robot. There's nothing. There's nothing in this movie. If you wanted to watch this movie,
those 50s sci-fi movies had like killer fucking posters, but there's only like there's like a handful of them that actually live up to the posters.
Yeah, this one doesn't live up to the
because a lot of them just had limited special effects. Like they were the only ones that live up to their posters are like the original Godzilla. I would say does them. Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, like 20 Million Miles to Earth does, but like a lot of them are just like these big beautiful posters, and then it's just like some. You can see the wires like moving the puppets.
This is one of those movies where there's a scene where the robot is like carrying this woman. Not in any kind of like great action way. There's no great action sequence in this movie at all whatsoever. Not at all whatsoever. It's not here. There's a sequence where the robot just picks this woman up just to take her into the spaceship, and then you just see the strings. You see the strings of the guy is not actually carrying her. She's being carried by strings. It's a silly ass movie. Like I think I give it a 6, right? Yeah, I give it a 6 just out of like kind of just being like, just out of being nice, It's not a good movie.
It's old.
It's old, and it's not really worth people's time. It's not worth anyone's time. You kind of get the movie immediately. Like, you could watch the first, 10 minutes and then skip to the last 10 minutes, and you've done yourself a favor. And then other than that, I watched a Japanese movie called Gonin, which I think just means, 5 people or 5 persons or 5 men or something. Written and directed by Takashi Ishii, who is kind of like a very B-movie kind of underground cult guy, and this is like his big movie. This is his movie that he's known for, the one big splash that he did, because everything else he made was very much just kind of kind of just gore and gruesome, kind of old pulpy Japanese movies that nobody cares about. But this is like the one movie that he made that people actually made some noise about. And it's literally just about these 5 guys whom they all have, I guess, debt or some reason to want to rob the Yakuza. And they rob the Yakuza. I remember you and I, Jake, watched a movie called, Rob the Mob or whatever. This is like that.
Oh, yeah.
It's just these 5 guys, and they go, we're going to rob the Yakuza and just get this money from them. But they're a bunch of idiots. And that's kind of what the whole thing is. They're a bunch of idiots. And then they pull this heist on the Yakuza, and they rob them, but then everything just goes wrong. And this is a movie. This movie is I think about 2 hours. It's 10 minutes short of just an hour and 40 minutes, hour and 50 minutes. In this movie, the robbing the Yakuza stuff happens in the first 45 minutes of the movie. So they carry out the heist in the first half of the movie. And then the other half of the movie is watching them kind of live with the repercussions of their actions. But the issue is that when the heist happens in this movie, you only know the context of why one of these 4 guys is doing this heist. Then the other 4 guys, you don't know why they're actually robbing them. And then the rest of the movie is basically the Yakuzas, they hire these 2 hitmen, despite the fact that they're Yakuza, they hire 2 hitmen for whatever reason, to go and kill the 5 guys and get the money back. But then the issue is that this movie is insanely boring. Boring. And wastes humongous amount of times. It's gratuitous in the violence that it has sometimes. There's some interesting sequences here and there, but I would not recommend this movie to anybody. I give this movie a 4 out of 10. I would not recommend this to anybody. Way too long.
That's a weird trope in movies that I've heard is so it's so inaccurate. There's that famous sort of serial killer / hitman named the Iceman. HBO made documentaries about him, and then there was a movie called Iceman starring Michael Shannon as the titular character. Winona Ryder played his wife. And not a very good movie. And there was a former mafia guy who I think his name is Michael Franzini or something, and he did a review of that movie, and he was talking about the movie, but also the real life Iceman. How basically the guy claims that he was a mafia hitman, and the mafia would pay him $100,000 for a hit, and the mafia guy is that's not how hits work. The mafia has people members
that are
that
killers.
go do
Yeah.
these hits
Yeah.
for no money. Why would they go and pay somebody?
Yeah, in this movie, they
'Cause, like,
get two guys
Iceman
and
was
pay
a
them
liar,
to go and
basically.
kill them.
Yeah, the Iceman in real life, he was a liar. He was a pathological liar. Like,
Yeah.
he said, "Oh, I worked with Sammy the Bull," or whatever. It's like, no, dude, you know. He took credit for, like, mob killings and stuff
Yeah.
that he didn't actually do. But yeah, that's like a funny trope, because when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Like, you realize the whole concept of hitmen does not make sense at all. Because
No.
it's like, why would they pay a guy to? They have guys.
Yeah. So it's pretty stupid. Like, this movie's pretty stupid. And again, it's way too long, and it just kind of, the premise of the movie falls flat completely on its face. I wouldn't recommend this movie to anybody. To nobody. Unless you're just like a freak, like Japanese crime thriller guy, and then you just want to watch a Japanese crime thriller, go ahead, I guess. But this is not a good movie. 4 out of 10. Everybody, thanks for joining us on this Film Tangents episode. Next time we have Major League from 1989. So make sure to be here or be not here.
Oh, something. Yeah.
Next time on Film Tangents.
See you guys.
See ya.